For today, we will be learning about a man named Makir, and I would title this as the father of a blessed people. We see that Makir is mentioned in the book of Genesis and other Old Testament books. In Genesis, we first see him in Genesis chapter 50, verse 23. The children of Makir, we see, was brought on Joseph's knees at birth. In this verse, we see 4 generations. We see Joseph, we see Manasseh, we see Makir and his children. Right from the beginning of his mention, he is mentioned along with his children. Throughout the Bible, we see he is known for his descendants, basically meaning that he was the founder of one of the prominent and dominant clans. If you look through the Bible, we keep seeing the name of this tribe repeated throughout the early Jewish history. What is so important about this clan, or what is so important about his descendants? There are 3 things I would like to mention. They were blessed people. How do we know it? When we go back to Genesis chapter 50, verse 23, the mention of bringing Makir's children on Joseph's knees is very significant. Knees represent a blessing, and it also significantly means that Joseph raised them as his own children. Throughout the Bible, wherever we see this, they say, bring the children to my knees, or I have my knees to receive them. Or in the book of Job, he says, my father's knees were there to receive me. It all talks about raising the children under that person's shadow. And we know from that scripture that Joseph had the privilege of growing his great-grandchildren. These children, therefore, were blessed uniquely. Blessing at the knee of the fathers also meant the blessing of dominance. We see this work out through the Jewish history. They were not just blessed people, they were people who worked towards their blessing. The children of Makir are mentioned as great soldiers in Joshua chapter 17, verse 1. They were strong warriors who fought for the conquest of Canaan, God's promised land. At one point, the Bible also mentions that they gave around 52,700 men for war. In the book of Judges, chapter 5, verse 14, Deborah praises Makir along with the other tribes of Israel. We see how prominent Makir's children were in the tribe of Manasseh. In fact, the tribe of Manasseh was mostly known by these people. So they owned a large inheritance. The Bible records that they had 60 towns under them. Also, not just that they owned a large inheritance, their inheritance was also blessed. We must have often heard the name the Balm of Gilead. Gilead was known for medicines and spices and all sorts of wonderful things. So they were not just blessed, they were also people who worked towards their blessing. They were blessed, they worked towards their blessings, and they also kept their blessings. In Numbers chapter 27, we see the children of Makir, one of the families, the family of Zelophehad, had no sons but only daughters, and their inheritance was in danger of going out of the clan. So at this point, they come and meet Moses at the tent of meeting, and they ask of the Lord, what should be done? And by the Lord's guidance, the laws are changed so that even the daughters can take part of the inheritance of their fathers. That was a unique time when the law was made towards keeping the inheritance of their families, even if there were no sons in the families. So what does this talk about Makir? We see that Makir was the founder of this dominant clan. We also see that Makir made a bridge between the generations. He brought his children and placed them on the knees of Joseph so that these children would be directly blessed and raised by Joseph, who himself was a very blessed man. And the most important thing about Makir is that he is recorded in the Bible for his children. God never forgets anybody who raised their children or their generations to stand for him. It is very important to know that Jewish history or the Jewish life holds the concept of remembering very important, especially remembering the ancestors. It is still in practice that they remember their ancestors on some particular days of the year. God makes a mention of Makir throughout the Old Testament and therefore brings honor to his name. Fathers who raise a generation of people who fight and stand for God are always remembered. They are counted in God's eyes and brought to light so that we ourselves will be encouraged. Hope this study has helped knowing about this character from the Bible.